So by the time you watch this video, you should have already imported successfully your materials as well as your products. Now comes the next big question. How do you connect your materials to your products? So this is what we're going to cover. This is the add new product recipes and bill of materials import section of this video series. So kicking this off, settings page, data import, third row down, you'll see the add new products recipe and BOMs template. Now, a few things I want to mention about this before we get into it is it says add new product recipes slash BOMs, but I want to say that what's interesting or important to note about this import spreadsheet is it does two things. It adds new recipes, but it can also replace recipes too. So if you have a situation where, let's say that you're producing products, not only do you need to get your initial product recipe and BOMs into the system, but perhaps they change, you can also use the spreadsheet to change them as well. So we'll go ahead and download it. I'll show you what it looks like and how it works. It's not complicated. It's quite simple. So download the template here, and then it'll pull up nice little info sheet actually, which I didn't talk to you yet about. I'll close out this first one here, and I'll bring this over into a smaller view. All right, cool. Now, the product recipe, I'll move my face over here somewhere where it's out of the way. The product recipe bill of materials import template shows some information here. You can feel free to read through it. It's got some great tips that will tell you how to do it. But anyway, we'll get into the meaty part. The import spreadsheet is not complicated. It's relatively easy to do. But as I had mentioned in your material and products import videos, the single most important thing that you can do is specify an SKU code for your product variants and your material variants. And those SKU codes must be unique in order for this import to actually work. So when you're working with this, you'll take the products that you have imported and the materials that you have imported, maybe you'll have them on a side spreadsheet somewhere, and then you'll start to map out those recipes as they're required for importation reasons in Katana. First thing you'll want to do, and this is a required field, is to put the product SKU inside of this first column here. So you have to have the SKU match. If you need it specifically just for reference, you can also like copy over the product variant name too. This particular field is not required for importing a recipe, but it is useful for having a reference point for the materials that you're importing. So the reason why the product variant is listed here first is mainly because what you're doing is you're adding the product variant in this row, and then you're adding the ingredient variant in the next rows. And the product variant will repeat itself because the way that the importation actually works is that every row of data for the product variant import is basically like, oh, okay, so we need to look at this variant based on SKU, and then we need to look at the ingredient and how much quantity to add of that ingredient to that product SKU variant. And so when we're looking inside of a product card, I'll move my face one more time, zoom out a little bit since my screen is small. We'll go to the items screen. Let's take the television stand as an example. So the product recipe it looks complicated here, but I don't want to make it too complicated. Instead is that there's an item listed here that is going to be associated with one of the product variants. And so the product variants that you'll be adding here is mapping. You'll basically be choosing, okay, I have TS-BL as a variant product that I want to add a recipe to. And then if it has, let's say, 2 ingredients, I would list TS-BL twice. And then I would put a different ingredient variant to which will apply to it. And then on top of it, I'll add the quantity of those particular ingredients. to make that particular product in one unit. So all recipes in Katana are determined based on the product unit of one. How much does it take of this particular ingredient or material to make one unit of that product? It doesn't matter if it's a finished product, a semi-finished product, as long as it's a product you manufacture, you're going to use some type of item inside of it to make it. But you always have to use it on the basis of one. Now, this could be a little challenging for certain types of businesses. For example, if you're in discrete manufacturing where things are determined on a per unit of measure basis, where it's by the piecework, it's usually not too complicated. For example, if I'm making a cell phone and one of the ingredients is a screen, I use one screen as a material input or a product semi-finished good input to make the final product. But if you're in the industries where you deal with weights and measures, you have to start getting creative about how this looks. So like, for example, if you have a batch size of, let's say you maybe make a certain type of soft drink. Let's say it's something similar to soda or Coca-Cola in a way. And in that Coca-Cola, you make it in a batch of 100 liters. And for every 100 liters you make, you use, I'll keep it super simple, you use 100 kilograms of sugar. Something like that. That might be a lot of sugar, but use 100 kilograms of sugar in 1,000 liters of this product. What you have to do is track that product in your Katana account as per 1 liter, and then divide that by your total batch size by 1,000. So if it takes, in this case, it takes, I guess, 100 grams per liter of sugar, then you would want to use this conversion rate where you're tracking each liter of soda, as an example, and then convert that to each gram of sugar. And so even though your batch size is a certain amount, you'll need to divide it by your batch size and then divide the ingredient by the amount that's created to make 1 unit of that particular item. So you might have to get creative when you're coming up with recipes if you're dealing with weights and measures, weights and volume measures as a unit for making your products that are more or less created in a batch production process. So divide your general batch size to get those quantities correct. Just something as a heads up in case you are that type of customer who uses those types of products. Outside of that, for simplicity's sake, if you're doing like piecework type of manufacturing, like electronics, for example, then you would specify the product variant, and then you would specify the ingredient variant and the correct quantity to make 1 unit of that product variant. And then most importantly here is you would repeat the same SKU for product, but then change the ingredient SKU for each row that's associated with that product. Now, every time there is a variant that has ingredients associated to it, it'll add 1 recipe row or 1 bill of material row for that specific product variant. One way to kind of validate how your bill of materials actually look is to actually export them. So just to kind of give you an idea of what the Katana export looks like, because I think this also helps construct or helps customers deconstruct what it looks like from that perspective, is to go into your items list, find a product that you have here, and choose bulk action and export the recipe BOM. Oh, sorry, I chose the wrong option. Export here. And then that will generate a file for you, which you can then have a quick look at. And you see, this is how it looks. You have the product variant here, like so, and then you have the 3 different components that make up that variant, and then the quantity per component to make 1 unit of this. So that's how it actually references. So the output file is very similar to the input file, but it's important to understand the logic whenever you are working with importing that type of data. So now, whenever we're talking about adding new products and adding new recipes to products, you would basically fill out this information, and then once you're back into your settings page and all of the data is set up, You go to your data import, and here you will upload that data in this upload data section. Now, since we're on the topic of adding and updating your bill of material, is let's say that you've already done this process, but you need to change something with your bill of material, then the way Katana works is it'll either add existing rows, so you can take this spreadsheet here and add additional items to a bill of material, or you can replace the existing recipes. So typically the way Katana works in this case is that when you choose the upload data option, it'll add the information uh, to your products, and then at that point you now have recipes for your products. But then if you, for example, go into the item screen and download the bill of materials that I just showed you and make a change to it, like change the quantity or remove something, you can actually either A, it'll give you an option during the import process to add additional rows of product ingredient data, or B, completely change the different recipes that are on those particular variants. And so it will then just eliminate the existing recipe and replace it with what you currently have uploaded. So it works for both options, both updating existing ones and also adding new ones.